Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the panel on lawfare in the international arena. Now I know Bogi Alon is a tough act to follow. We are not going to announce any candidacy for prime minister or any other position. So what we're going to try to do in the next 55 minutes is to give you a clearer understanding of the challenges that Israel faces in the legal lawfare delegitimization arena, and what ideas we have for how to address these challenges. We are actually very well suited to address all of these issues because we have a panel here which includes all the different knowledge bases required for this discussion. So we have Asher Fredman, who works for the Ministry of Strategic Affairs, and he is actually, in my eyes, the coordinator of the ministry's activities as a special advisor to the Director General of the ministry, focused on delegitimization and BDS activities. We have retired Colonel Pnina Shavit Baruch, formerly the head of the International Law Department of the IDF, and today an INSS scholar focusing on, among other things, the BDS and delegitimization campaign against Israel. We have currently absent but running here as we speak, Erwin Kotler, former Minister of Justice of Canada, long-time Member of Parliament in Canada, and very long-time friend of the State of Israel, who has been extraordinarily active in defending Israel and the Jewish people all over the world, in Canada and here and everywhere else. We have Professor Eugene Kantorovich, professor at Northwestern University, and one of the more outspoken scholars addressing the core issues of the Israeli-Arab conflict, including the issues of delegitimization and lawfare and BDS. And finally, we have David, where am I? David Hoffa, sorry, David. And David is a unique story. Those of you who know what I'm going to talk about is David is an American lawyer who will tell us about his perspective on fighting BDS on American soil. But with your permission, David, I will say 30 seconds about your background. In addition to his personal involvement, he comes from a long line of pro-Israel activists, and his grandfather is quite well known. He was called Jimmy Hoffa. And those of you who know him, the president of the Brotherhood of Teamsters and a longtime friend of the State of Israel, and one of our greatest supporters and helpers in the 1950s and 60s. And David's father has been for the last 17 years the president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, and has continued in the family tradition of supporting Israel in any form or fashion. So thank you, David, and your family for all your support. And if you're wondering who I am, in addition to being the moderator, my name is Daniel Reisner. I was also the former head of the International Department of the IDF. I had the pleasure of working with Pnina for 15 years, and she succeeded me. And since 1994, I had the privilege of working with all Israeli prime ministers as a special consultant and a member of all Israel's peace negotiation teams. As you can see, I'm not very good at that. However, for the last 17 years, I have been very active as a lawyer, both for the government and for private sector, in combating BDS, delegitimization, and lawfare, starting from cases in the late 1990s and cases recently to today. So this is a panel. You have everything you need in order to get the entire picture, and I would like to open the discussion with inviting Asher Fredman to talk to us about the perspective from the Ministry of Strategic Affairs. Thank you, Asher.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me, for having me here. As somebody who's been working in the government on these issues for the last 6 years, I've had the privilege of being involved almost from the first day that the government defined this challenge of delegitimization as a unique challenge, as something new, something different than it was in the past that needs to be dealt with. And that was a challenging process because while delegitimization of Israel has existed since before the state was founded, there are aspects, very significant aspects of the current challenge which are both quantitatively and qualitatively different. Now, in military theory or military doctrine, when people talk about system of systems, the concept is the integration of command, control, communications, intelligence, force projection, and the side that gains the upper hand in a battle is not just the side that has better capabilities in any one of those areas, but the side that can best integrate, that can best manage that system of systems. I think that in modern conflicts, the lens needs to be even wider. When we talk about a modern conflict, for example, Israel's conflicts, Israel's operations in Gaza against Hamas, we're talking about not just the military aspect, but the legal aspect, the media aspect, the PR aspect, psychological warfare, national resilience, the local arena, the foreign arena, the enemy's approach. And the side that gains the upper hand is the side that knows how to best manage all those different systems, all those different arenas. If we take Joseph Nye's distinction between hard power and soft power, between coercion and force, and persuasion and attraction, we could describe those elements, the economic, legal, PR, media, national resilience, as part of the soft war that needs to be integrated and managed together with the hard war, the kinetic war, the war that's based on force and coercion. Now, delegitimization is almost a perfect example of this need to manage a system of systems. Delegitimization, which BDS is a part of, takes place in many different arenas, in the economic arena, in the academic arena, in the legal arena, churches, unions, student groups, cultural figures, political leaders. And in order to gain an advantage, to gain the upper hand in the attempt to counter the assault on Israel's legitimacy, what is needed is to manage the system of systems, to integrate. And that's the role, first unofficially and now officially in a cabinet decision, that was granted to the Ministry of Strategic Affairs. The ministry, as Minister Ardan said earlier, doesn't come to replace anybody, but it comes to take a campaign or a battle or an operation that to this day was characterized by a sporadic approach, by reaction, by defense, to change the approach, to move from essentially a chaotic environment where there's lots of different action, but it's not coordinated, it's not strategic, it's not proactive, to move from the chaotic environment to a decentralized but coordinated operation. The goal of the ministry is to take all these different efforts and again, move from sporadic approach to strategic, from reactive to proactive, from defense to offense. And to act strategically, to say, what are the arenas that are important to me? What are the populations, the audiences that are important to me? What are my goals in each of those arenas? What is needed to accomplish those goals? And then to ask, what already exists? Now, the way that the ministry sees it, where there are already actors that are existing that are doing, as there are in the legal arena, the people sitting here in many other arenas, first of all, we do not have any desire to command, to control, to direct. We want to move this decentralized campaign in a single coordinated direction. So where there are things happening, we want to empower, we want to encourage, we want to assist. Where there are gaps, we want to fill those gaps. And if we look very broadly at overall goals, we need to, first of all, on the most basic level, counter anti-Israel initiatives and disrupt the BDS network, which, as Minister Ardan, my boss, stated earlier, until this time has been able to act freely and almost without any impediment at all. Disrupt, degrade their capabilities. Again, as the minister also emphasized, not in any physical manner, but in using all different other kinds of tools. Secondly, to win the battle of ideas, to delegitimize the idea of delegitimization against Israel, to expose the movement, to expose its hypocrisy, to expose its lies, its propaganda, to expose the facade that it puts out as being a pro-peace movement or a pro-human rights movement, to expose it as a movement that is opposed by singling out Israel. And again, I'm going to assume that most of the people in the audience here have a basic understanding, don't need the 101, but to expose and delegitimize this campaign against Israel, this campaign to undermine the basic legitimacy, the core legitimacy of Israel's existence as something illegitimate, as something that should be rejected by people of culture, by people who value human rights and democracy. And thirdly, the positive element. While we want to counter the lies, we also want to spread the truth. We want to bring as many people to Israel as possible so they can see the country through their own eyes. For people who can't come here, we need to reach them. We need to combine the passion of grassroots activists with the most advanced PR and high-tech methods that exist. So those three elements make up our strategy. Now, a catchphrase in this world, and those who've been involved in countering delegitimization and BDS, has been, it takes a network to defeat a network. That's only partially true. In order to gain an upper hand, it takes a network working in synergy with the capabilities of a state. And when I say synergy, it doesn't necessarily mean in cooperation. There's civil society, there are NGOs, and there's the state with the capabilities and interests of the state. Those are two separate things. But in order to gain the upper hand and gain the advantage and roll back, and I believe it's possible, to roll back the other side, to retake the momentum, we need to create synergy between the pro-Israel network and the capabilities and the ways of acting of a state. Now, the legal element of this campaign, as I mentioned, is one of the central elements, and it can be divided into different kinds of activity, and they're very well represented here. You have the litigation side, the side of legal steps, legal threats, lawsuits, etc. You have the issue of international law, the laws of war, laws of armed conflict, international treaties, and you have also the wider debate about norms, about this positive moral connotation of international law, of human rights, of a state being seen as a state that values international law and international human rights. And in the same way that the barriers are being broken down between the military campaign and the PR campaign and the psychological campaign and the economic campaign, even in the legal arena, and I'm sure people here will attest, here too, international law runs into domestic laws that become lawsuits against companies, that become a greater debate meant to delegitimize or legitimize the state. And here too, in the legal campaign, as a sub-campaign, as part of the larger campaign, which the Ministry of Strategic Affairs hopes to lead, the goal to gain the upper hand will be integration, coordination, and creating synergy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Usher.